One. And finally, good afternoon, everyone. It's very, 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 very nice to be here again because we're just starting season 5 of our live video broadcast, Dojo Live, connecting experts like you. And we're broadcasting from our Mexico City offices, and I believe Luis Ortiz, my fellow teammate, he's in our Hermosillo office, right, Luis?
Right.
Cool. So thank you for being here, Luis, as ever. And of course, today we're also going to have a special guest. We're going to have Heidi Araya. And hi, Heidi.
Hi there.
Heidi we're going to be chatting with her. She's in Florida, and we're going to be talking about bridging distance, overcoming challenges on distributed agile teams. Welcome to our show, Heidi. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here with you guys.
Oh, likewise, and thank you, Luis, for having this great idea of having Heidi on our show today. Okay, we're gonna get it started. Heidi. Heidi is an agile coach and trainer, and you've been working with remote teams since what, 1999, right?
Yes.
Cool, perfect. So, by the way, if you have any questions for Heidi, there you can see that right here. You can send us on Twitter. It's at DojoLIVE. Just send us over on Twitter at DojoLIVE, and we'll just read them back to Heidi, and she'll be able to respond here live on the show. Okay, Heidi, we're going to pass on the mic to you, and let's start with, tell us a little bit about you, and then we can get started with today's topic. Welcome to the show, Heidi.
Thank you so much. I started out my career basically as a technical writer and working for AOL, which was a huge name back then. And so back in 1999, I had the first experience with remote teams. Things were really different back then. But many things have changed in the past many, many years. And basically, I kind of, through my career, after that, I became an analyst and a product owner and a scrum master, an agile coach, which is how I ended up here where I am today. But as always, most companies that I've ever worked with, the majority of those teams were not entirely co-located. And so this is the reality of the workforce today in the work world, and even for multinational firms that are out there. Obviously, you can't have everybody in one location, and oftentimes that means distributed teams. So this is how I got to be passionate about agile and distributed work at the same time. So
cool. Thank you so much, Heidi, for that. Okay, so Heidi, I understand that today's topic you chose bridging distance,
yes,
overcoming challenges on distributed agile teams. And I'm sure, I have my own set of questions, and I'm sure that there are going to be more, but I'd like to start off with the first one. And I think for me, it kind of would be obvious to ask you, can you talk to us about these challenges and how they can be overcome? I mean, we're talking about distributed teams, and we're all connected. Technology is great these days. So what are these challenges? Are these technical? Are these human in nature? What are these challenges, please? Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can be some technical challenges, but the real challenges are the human ones, right? When we go into an office, we have all kinds of contexts that you may not even think about on a daily basis. I can look at the shirt you're wearing and see, like, hey, maybe we went to the same school, or see pictures of your kids on your desk, and there's a whole lot of things information that I can glean about my coworkers and learn about them just by being in the office. This is just on a personal level. On a wider company level, all the context of, you hear people murmuring around you about the latest sale that happened, or this particular challenge that they solved, and so there's so much context that you have in a co-located environment that you don't with distributed teams. And I'm working for a company that's almost entirely distributed now. So, I mean, overall, there's just less of this real-time, high bandwidth communication with our colleagues. So it gives us less opportunity to get to know our colleagues. And this is really, I mean, when it comes down to doing the work every single day, people aren't robots, and we don't just interact with them on a working level just so that they do their task and then it's over. I mean, these are actually people that we work with. And so this is the biggest challenge. that I can see is how can we get to know our colleagues, even if we've never actually met them in person, and feel like that we have empathy for them, and that they are actually our colleagues and not just someone on the other side of the world or city or anything like that. So yeah, this is the huge thing that I'm passionate about solving.
Okay. And where do you think that meeting face to face comes comes in place at some point? Is it really necessary, or can this happen? Like, can anyone work like 100% of the time in a distributed manner effectively? Or
So oh, absolutely. So I would say, if you're on a team, and it's very helpful to meet your colleagues, but oftentimes this is just not possible with the world of work today.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of a large multinational firm, what if some of your team members are in France and India, in South America, in San Francisco, like they have been? So it's not realistic that you can meet everybody all the time. But what can we do? And so, if you want me to delve into that, I can talk about some strategies to get to know your colleagues.
Well, that would be interesting, but that would be taking Luis's time. So I don't want to do that. So Luis, please, your turn.
Hey, well, first of all, thank you, and hi to everybody. Well, just to get the conversation going, a few days ago, we wrote a blog precisely about agile distributed teams. And one of the points of that blog was, there's this pervasive thought that agile software development promotes collocation, almost restrictively collocation, because, take a look at the sixth principle. It's the most efficient method is face-to-face information or conversation. And I agree with the fact that face-to-face is the most effective, but I think that would be blocking yourself to the new realities of the workplace, right? So what do you say when this comes up? We've been working with remote teams for a while, with agile teams for a while, and there's a lot of reluctance to work in distributed teams. 100%.
Yeah, so here's what I say. Well, first of all, the Agile Manifesto came out in 2001. Software was very different back then. Teams were very different back then. And remember, these were people who came together to talk about things that they believed in. That's why they called it a manifesto. So that doesn't take away from the Agile Manifesto at all, but the world of work has increasingly changed. And so we need to adapt and evolve, because there's just no possible way that we can have everybody on a team in a co-located. And even back then, it wasn't possible. I mean, in 1999, we were still dealing with teams in France and India and all over the world. So even back then, if you're a large company, you can't actually do that. And so it's just basically accepting reality that we must have some people that are not in the same place as we are. So, I mean, I would say luckily the technology has changed in many, many great ways since then, so that we can collaborate more effectively. And so back then we lacked a lot of tools. AOL Instant Messenger, and AOL had, I think about this today because we have team chat rooms, right? Well, AOL had the first chat rooms. If only we had leveraged that at work. We did not leverage those at work, but we did have AOL Instant Messenger, and I just remember instant messaging teams, in France and people all around the world to get information that I needed. But this was the first way we could communicate that was not even just email or picking up a phone. So many, many things have come about to help us collaborate. And yes, they involve technology, but the end goal of that technology, in my mind, is still to enable us to connect as people with the other people that we work with.
Right. I remember AOL and Synthesis.
Yes.
It's like somebody said it was a primitive Slack. Somebody mentioned that once, and I told them it's exactly the same Slack. It's not primitive. It's the same Slack. Great. So Heidi, in your opinion, what do I have if I'm building a team? Let's say I'm a startup and I'm building a team. What do I have to consider before making the decision of building an in-house team, a co-located team, or a remote team? What are the things that I have to consider?
Yeah, great question, because there's a few considerations here. I would say one of the things is diversity and where you're located. So I live in Orlando, so let's look about the diversity in I want to say medium-sized city, maybe 1 million people or so. But if I go, and I know the people that I've worked with in Orlando, they have all worked at exactly the same places. A lot of them have graduated from the local university. Well, not everybody, but they have, and they've all worked at the same place. So this is a matter of actually diversity, and we know that diversity helps us with be innovative and creative. And so if you have people going to the same university, working at all the same places, they're not going to be as innovative. And so this is like number one on my mind when you brought that up. But let's say you live in a large city, but you have specialty knowledge that you need, and you have people who don't want to move. So let's say you need somebody with artificial intelligence experience, and they're located in San Francisco, and you're located in New York City, and they don't want to move. Are you going to give up that specialist, or are you going to allow them to work remotely? And so there are many considerations to whether you decide to have a co-located team or a remote team, but oftentimes it just comes to the reality of the people that you want to hire and where they are located.
Right. And what would you say? I built my team already, a distributed team. What do you think is the single biggest challenge for a remote team?
Well, first off,
that it needs to be handled.
Well, oftentimes it's time zones. I mean, even if you've got West Coast of the United States and East Coast of the United States, there is still, if I'm starting at 8 a.m. Eastern, well, gosh, I mean, it's going to be like 11 a.m. Before I can really talk to this 8 a.m. their time. So then, I mean, I've got people on the West Coast already getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning for 9 o'clock in the morning meetings. So already it makes that collaboration just a little bit more difficult. So you can imagine what happens when we go to Europe. Of course, South America is a little easier because we're not as time zone constricted, Central and South America. But if you start going to, India and in Europe, then the time shift makes true collaboration really difficult. And the other remote and distributed agile specialists talk about the 4 to 5 hours a day that you really need to be most effective at collaborating. So obviously that will depend on the kind of work that your team does. But then I would ask your team, are you getting the amount of collaboration that you need? So yeah, that's the first question that comes to my mind when you say, we've already built my team. How can we get them to share a time zone, or how can we get them to collaborate? Is it then going to be asynchronous, or how are we going to work together effectively is the next question.
Exactly, and I think you just need to solve that as a team, right? Because you need to reach an agreement. I've worked with teams in Asia, and it's a hard time whenever you only share like 2 or 3 hours a day inside your work day. Right? Yeah. And then get back and forward with the information, asking something and getting the answer the next day. I mean, it's a challenge there.
So yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, people talk about it's cheaper to outsource, but how much cheaper is it to outsource if you are waiting a day in between decisions? So this is, strategies that I'm sure that you've heard about, like share the pain. So 1 week you work late or you get up early, and then the next, you trade off, or having asynchronous, sharing of information and things like that. So.
Yeah, that's what we know as in my team, in the business development team. That's what we call the total cost of engagement. And the end, it's way, way, way similar, or if not higher.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Okay, Luis, Heidi, and Luis, just let me just interrupt for a quick second. I would like to invite the audience. If you have any questions for Heidi or for Luis about today's topic, feel free to send it over on Twitter. That will be like the way to go. If you're watching us from outside or nearsoft, it's right here. Our Twitter handle is right here at DojoLIVE. Just send it over Twitter. Read them back to Heidi, and she'll respond. And if you're watching this interview here internally, well, you can do that on Slack very easily. So, with that being said, I have another question, but Luis. I'll save mine for the end. So just go ahead. You're on the spotlight right now, so go.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to follow up on that little story when I was working with an Asia team. I had the opportunity to, while working with that Asian team, I went overseas. I was in Europe, and so I had a little bit more flexibility with my schedule. However, my management team, which was back home here, decided that I needed to work the Americas hours while being overseas. And it was. I mean, it didn't make sense for me, but they insisted on that. So my question goes in the lines of that: how is the attitude from the management different towards remote teams or distributed teams, and how can you copy that?
Wow, that's also a really great question. So first of all, I think there has to be some understanding that if you have people, let's say, located in the United States, and then other people located in Europe. And are we focused on the hours that they work or the outcomes that they produce? And so, I mean, we think of this as agile teams are really focused on outcome, but obviously there's sometimes a disconnect where, yes, we focus on outcomes, but everybody has to be here, between 8 and 5. And so there really has to be some understanding about that what's the best way to get the outcome that we wish for. And if you are one of those people that your management is not understanding of the hours that you have to work in order to produce a good outcome, like let's say like me in the past, I would get up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning to conduct a retrospectives for Indian teams and so forth. That, there has to be a discussion around what's going to make me most effective. Is it being 8 to 5 Eastern time, or is it really handling the things that you wish I would handle to produce the outcome? So,
okay. So do you think in remote teams do schedules work? I mean, if you leave it free for all without a schedule, you don't have to be 9 to 5. Just need to get your work done. Do you think that's better, or is it better to have a schedule, a fixed schedule, so you can know whenever your teammate's going to be online? Or
I think that's very dependent on the teams, because I've had teams that decide to work different shifts regularly so that they can collaborate better with the U.S. teams, and I've had teams just say, well, our hours are 10 to 7 or so, and then they just go home. But I think that's a very individual decision, which would be great to have that discussion with the teams, both that are not onshore and the ones that are onshore, for example, to figure out what's the best way for us to work together.
Correct.
And so, yeah, you're kind of removing the power from management and asking the team to solve that challenge themselves, because really at the end of the day, right, the team is supposed to be responsible for that outcome.
Right. That previous job, I ended up working, I think it was noon to 8 or 9, just so I can get more hours with the other team. And it worked for me. I could use my mornings to do different things and then go straight to work. That was great. All right. So a little bit about distributed teams again. What makes a person more capable of working remotely or not? I've heard people say, I don't know if I can work remotely. I mean, you're alone, you're isolated, and I thought that myself at first, but I made it work to my lifestyle. So what do you think makes it a great working profile?
Well, first of all, I think the person has to be clear what they're walking into. So you have to be a little bit self-directed. So you have to enough, and what I mean by self-directed and sort of self-motivated, right? Get up every single day, dedicate whatever hours you think are necessary to do your job in a way, like 8 to 5 for myself mostly. And I guess one of the other common things is, do you disconnect also, or are you always connected? So some people think, oh, you're not going to work at all, but really remote workers tend to work much, much more than other workers. We don't have that excuse of, oh, I got to get on the road and I got to go, or, and our computers are right there. So I would say on both cases, right? Can't be a workaholic because you're going to burn yourself out. You need to step back and learn those things. And those are things that can be learned. But also you have to have enough motivation and self-direction to, I want to say, show up to your office every day at a schedule that works for you and everybody else. But this goes around also to what kind of work are we promoting? And I think the answer is, if it's really independent work and we're not interfacing with people, it's much easier to kind of sit back if I never have to interact with anybody. But this isn't the way that most agile teams are. And so I think it's easier now because the team has its own rhythm and its own schedule. And so I think that helps people even work remotely on agile teams. I mean, we're always connected. For example, there's stand-ups in the morning. Hey, what are you going to do today? So the expectations are set in small enough chunks that you can actually keep going. So I think agile teams have been really good for kind of setting expectations for remote workers in lots of cases.
Yeah, I think it's a good combination. Agile is suitable for remote work, in my opinion. So we haven't talked much about agile just remote. So now, how does agile changes in co-located versus distributed teams? Does the ceremony change? I mean,
so I would say the ceremonies not necessarily change, but you have to account for, how do I facilitate or be on a team and do those remote ceremonies. Let's say you're doing sprint planning or the retrospectives, obviously, right? As you know, the retrospectives are one of the things. Hey, we have sticky notes. We're writing all the things on a sticky note, and we're putting them up on the walls, and then we're grouping them and talking about them. But there are tools now that do that, but still, it's all about the people. So what changes? I would say the tools that you have to be the best tools. If you're talking about entirely co-located teams, now we're talking about a replacement for something that used to be or is best done in person. And so how do those tools really stack up? So video conferencing, not just dialing up on a telephone into a conference call where you don't know who else is dialed into the call, or if they're just being quiet, or if they're on mute. So getting on a group video call and being able to facilitate the events with, let's say, a whiteboard, a virtual whiteboard, or those tools that you need that you could have had in a co-located environment. And so I would just say it's translating some of those things to the online environment instead of just having the sticky note, the paper ones. You're going to have virtual sticky notes, for example.
Got it. And in that matter, also about the Agile Manifesto, there's another line that says people, processing tools. And sometimes also whenever we work with these teams, we find that reluctance as well. Oh, no, we shouldn't be using tools. What do you say?
Right. So, well, obviously, again, the Agile Manifesto was written in 2001, and they were already presupposing that you should be co-located. So, of course, we're not going to value tools over people. But even today, we're not. The tools that we are using today should only be to enable better collaboration and better empathy between our teammates, so that we can actually think of them as people and not just, well, workers, right? We're not thinking about robots, but I don't think that those
resources.
I don't think those two conflict in any way, shape, or form, because the tools are just enabling us to get to know our teammates better.
Correct. And I also say, it's people over tools, not instead of tools, right? It's
yes. Absolutely true. Yes.
And so in that line, what do you consider? I'm pretty sure you've given consulting to a lot of teams. So what do you consider? What do you look for in a tool to say, all right, this is a great tool. This is going to work for this one. What do you look for?
Well, I would say.
Are you looking for like one single tool for everything, or specific tools for every step, or where does that go?
I smell a hidden agenda there, Luis. So,
first of all,
I'll leave it there.
What problem are you trying to solve with the tool, right? So let's say we have Zoom right now that we're using, and it wasn't quite good enough. And I'm a huge Zoom fan, but at the same time, the teams that were working, they wanted to be able to drop in and out of other team rooms to figure out what they're doing and sort of ad hoc pair and mob program and these things. And so Zoom wasn't really working for them because they could just post the Zoom link in a chat. But let's say an escalation happened and the chat was going on, and then people couldn't find which Zoom chat is the right, Zoom link is the right Zoom link. And so they actually decided to move to Sococo. So I don't know if you've ever used Sococo, but it's really neat. You can actually kind of see from the top down this dollhouse view of an office, and that solved their problem for spontaneous collaboration. So first of all, I would say before you consider a tool, think what problem is it going to solve for you that that Zoom wasn't solving for us, let's say, and talk about it that way. Don't just talk about a new tool. And the other one is Slack has video calls and has chat, and so does Zoom, and so does Sococo. I don't think one team is going to be the be all and end all for every single company and every single team. So I'm going to doubt that we can ever reduce it down to one tool, because tools have specific needs and customer base and I want to say angle on what they're trying to solve that may not solve your exact problem. So I don't say. I mean, maybe it could happen one day, and maybe that's part of the future of what we're going to get is more realistic experience of being in an office, and one tool can cover everything. Or if that's going to happen, we're just not there yet.
Well, there's a lot of things to consider there, and I'll leave it there. All right, so I don't want to take over. Carlos, do you have any other questions or anything?
Yeah, well, just one actually. Yes, because we're approaching the final segment of today's chat. But I do have a question and or a request for comment. Let's put it that way. Well, based on what I read about you, well, you've been um, around for quite a while since 1999, and I mean, in the agile scenario. Now, my question is, you talk to companies, you talk to you consult with companies, with the enterprises, and the concept of self-organized teams hasn't been around that long. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it all started with Semco in Brazil. Not quite sure, but anyway, that's what I know. And because it's a fairly recent concept, you know, the concept of self-organized teams and self-management and freedom at the workplace, things like that. I would like to ask you, when you talk to these companies that have been around longer, way longer, they go back and they're trying to update their systems and reorganize and revamp the whole thing. But a lot of these companies' principles might be, I don't know, let's call it old school or more conventional kind of type of thinking. What sort of challenges have you encountered when talking to these companies about self-organized teams and the remote work distributed teams? And is there any kind of resilience in these companies to these relatively new types of ways of work? So let's put it that way.
Sure.
So what are the challenges? How have you overcome these challenges in talking to these companies, and most importantly, in making them clients of yours?
So that's an interesting challenge, because I think that is one of the biggest challenges, obviously, is that you know, they hear about Agile and we assume that when they say, let's say they call me up, they know what Agile is and they know what Scrum is, but really they have no idea how it's going to change their enterprise. And so, I mean, yeah, I guess the most common challenge is how does that change what we're doing today? It could change depending on how big you want to get and how big the company. It could change the hierarchical structure. Are we going to let go of our hierarchical structure? What kind of leadership are we promoting? And so it could go anywhere from, hey, I recommend that you talk to your leadership and your managers about the kind of leadership that we are going to be moving towards, and send them to training and give them some tools to have this kind of leadership, coach them on the kind of leadership we want to move to. So I think that discussion is best. It's better to have had up front, but rarely does that actually happen. So then you come in and it's like, I don't understand why, you know, these people are not happy here. We got all these Agile teams and they're still not happy, and I just don't get it. But you have managers still acting in a very, you know, at certain level, in a very command and control way. And so you kind of threw in here remote teams also, but I'm not even sure that we can. That's like another challenge altogether, is how does management trust remote teams? And so, but I think they're related, right? What kind of leadership do we want to promote? And a discussion has to be had around the training that we want to give our middle and upper managers to communicate this. We now value if you want to call it, I like the word collaborative leadership. So you're not just command and control. And this is a very hard thing for a lot of managers who've been in those companies often 20 to 30 years. Is it really difficult for them to swallow this? Now I'm not giving orders. I don't have the final say in the hiring or this, you know, or let's say the salaries, or depending where you want to go. But I now have to sort of step back and allow my team to give me advice, and I should be following this advice. So I would say give people the training they need in order to understand how it's going to change what they do every day.
Perfect.
That's probably the biggest challenge for management. So step back and say, you know, this guy's the expert.
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Heidi. Well, we need to do the wrap up. So Heidi, do you have any final?
I have a couple questions, Mark. Real quick.
Go ahead, please.
It won't take that long.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
no problem.
I just wanted to hear what Heidi, what do you have to say, or what are your thoughts on the future of the tech industry and Agile? Do you see any upcoming changes or any you know, anything that we need to be prepared for?
Okay, well, I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit, so I can't say what's coming in the future, but I would say based on the way that technology is going, maybe there could be a way that we could even more better mimic the office experience in ways that we hadn't yet conceived of yet. So, you know, is it virtual reality? Is it the one tool that makes us feel like we are in an office? So I think these things are coming, and obviously we don't know when, but I think that they're definitely going to come to us sooner than we think. And so I think that will make remote work and virtual teams much easier and more possible than ever before around the world.
Yeah, I would think so too. Virtual reality, augmented reality, that's going to be cool. Yeah. And yeah, almost close. Do you have any suggestions for us? What resources can we look for in order to find out more about agile and distributed teams?
Wow. Well, the first thing I'll say is there's a guy by the name of Mark Kilby, and his website is I think remotelyagile.info, and he's got a list of resources there that you can go that he's already pre-curated for everybody. You can go there and find about his resources that he recommends, and which I do highly recommend. And of course, since we were talking about management, there's nothing better than Jürgen Appelow's Management 3.0 books and exercises that he has to help management understand what is collaborative. When they say self-organizing teams and collaborative leadership, what does that really mean? And so I would highly, highly recommend his work as well if you haven't heard of it yet. And then, you know, last to promote, I have a monthly virtual meetup series called Coaching Agile Journeys, and it's at coachingagilejourneys.com, and we just volunteer our time to talk about different topics. And this upcoming one is actually a woman by the name of Pilar Ortiz, and she's going to be talking about playful collaboration online. So we're going to actually go into Zoom breakout rooms, and we'll be exploring these distributed teams and how to collaborate online in real time. So that's March 22nd. So yeah, we can just explore more of this in that session.
Right. Sounds great. I've heard of Pilar Ortiz. I've never met her or talked to her personally, but I've heard it. And well, this will close it for me. Do you have any future plans, events, keynotes? Where can we find you? I mean,
yeah. So I am. Last year I did like 17 talks and 14 webinars and meetups and things. So I kind of scaled back this year. But the next one I'm doing is in Orlando locally, Code Camp on March the 17th. And then April the 16th, I'll be at a project manager business analyst conference, also locally in Orlando. And so, yeah, after that to come, you can watch my website and social media. Of course, I'll be promoting that, any upcoming things. But for now, these are my 2 local events that I'm doing next. And of course, the monthly virtual meetup series that we have at Coaching Agile Journeys.
Great. That's great. Well, I think that's it for me, Carlos. Yeah.
That's it for you? Okay. Heidi, you mentioned Coaching Agile Journeys, right?
Yes.
It's right here. This is the URL.
I think you got that right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's that. Well, Heidi, the only thing left for me to do is simply send out a big warm, heartfelt thank you for having been with us today. I think it was very educational, and I'm sure that we might get questions further down the road for you. So where can we find you? How can we get in touch, or the audience? How can they get in touch with you, or send you, questions?
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that. So you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. My Twitter handle is Heidi Araya, so right here on the screen. And of course, you can just look me up on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, I'm happy for any feedback, messages that you want to send me, any additional questions. I'm totally happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Heidi.
It's just to add also that to the audience. Heidi has always been very approachable, and I follow her work, her articles on LinkedIn and everything. And she has very valuable material. So I strongly suggest for you to follow her.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So, well, Heidi, thank you so much, and we're going to be in touch. We'll send you the saved episode for you and for the audience. And it was really great to have you here, and we hope to have you again sometime soon.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, it's been great chatting with you guys today.
Likewise. Thank you, Luis, as ever. And talk to you soon.
Thank you, Heidi.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Just 1 second. Okay. Oh. Because okay, where?
Bye, guys.